Okay, I'm looking at box 8.1 on page 73. Um, it goes on to page 74, and I got to tell you, this is a mess. I actually called the publisher about this box, and I really very much disagree with their portrayal of how to work out an ethical problem. This is all about somebody who has reached their goals in OT as they were originally set, and it's nearing time for discharge as originally configured. And the therapist is concerned because the child is being discharged to an unstable home situation, and they're feeling like, why don't we keep the patient here longer, because where they're going to be discharged is not a good environment. This is not the way we operate. Everyone can understand the dilemma, but it's not the way we operate. So it goes on and talks about this idea that they present, which is called identify whether there's a problem with locus of authority. I don't even think that's a thing. When you talk about ethics, everyone's on a level playing field. It has nothing to do with who has more authority. And so under locus of authority, for example, the book states a locus of authority problem is depicted in that the child, a minor, wants to continue with therapy, yet the parents, who have substance abuse problems, may not serve his best interest. The OT practitioner must decide if she will rely on the wishes of the parents, the child, or the institution which supports continued treatment due to insurance funding to determine intervention. This is crazy. I don't want anyone to enter this program thinking this isn't crazy. We never keep a person in therapy because the facility wants to continue to receive insurance payments. Sure, that is what the facility wants. That has nothing to do with OT. That is not a thing, locus of authority. So I would like you to scratch that whole bullet out of box 8.1. If you go down further, where it talks about the OT practitioner is responsible for helping Dave return to occupations that he desires, then you read the rest of this scenario, and it's really good treatment planning. It's what they should have done in the first place, and it's not an ethical dilemma. It's simply saying, when Dave started, there were these issues that have been dealt with, and he reached his goals. Now he's beyond that, and so in a way he might be ready for discharge. But actually there are a number of other services available, a number of other things to do, and there are a number of other goals to write which would justify continued treatment instead of looking this as an ethical dilemma. So I would simply read these last 4 bullets in box 8.1 and call it quits. It's great treatment planning. The rest of it is bogus. I guess you can see I feel strongly about that. I'm really disappointed. I wrote the publisher before this new edition came out and really tried to point out the problem, and they ignored my comments. So anyway, on to page 75. I just want to remind people, when you read about Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, the book highlights employment, but another big part of ADA is accessibility to public places. A lot of great information about federal and state statutes on page 75. It's a really valuable chapter, unlike some of the other chapters we've read. And I want to point out on page 76 at the top left, It says occupational therapists are legally responsible for services provided by OTAs. It goes on about OTAs. And AOTA, American Occupational Therapy Association, providing guidelines that describe minimum standards of practice and the parameters for supervision of OT personnel. That's all important. And wherever the book talks about documents that are not statutes and so don't have the force of law, remember that any unethical or questionable practice can always be reported to the licensure board. And this chapter, this author seems to feel like AOTA actually has some jurisdiction in ethical conflicts. On page 76, the right-hand column, it is true that you can file an ethical concern with AOTA. They can give you a judgment or an opinion, but AOTA is a voluntary organization. You can be an OT all your life, be certified by NBCOT, have your R, OTR, and never have anything to do with AOTA, and they actually have nothing to do with you. If there is an ethical concern and you want a ruling on it or a judgment, you have to go to the licensure board in the state. AOTA can do nothing. NBCOT can refuse to grant your renewal of your registration certification, but AOTA has nothing to do with any of this. They do provide us with our code of ethics, but they can't enforce them, and they can only give an opinion, which could be helpful, but I don't want you to think you have to belong to AOTA, and then if everyone did, then AOTA would have some jurisdiction. They're a voluntary organization that's supposed to support and help the profession. Okay, that's it for Chapter 8 and my soapbox. We've burned up another 7 minutes. I just want to say for Chapter 9, it's about professional organizations. And since I just said what I said about AOTA, you should keep that in mind. It's voluntary. NBCOT is the only organization you are required to have any dealings with because they provide your certification by passing the cert exam. The other organization is state level. It's not an organization, it's a licensure board, and it's a legal matter in terms of licensure. But AOTA is voluntary. Since this mandatory occupational therapy doctorate as an entry level has come out, a lot of people have distanced themselves from AOTA because they disagree so strongly with AOTA and their accreditation board's mandate that all schools now must teach the doctoral level and that's the only entry into the field. So that's causing AOTA some headaches. It's going to cost them membership. And while it's a great organization, in my opinion, in this case, they've made a decision that's affected a lot of people in a lot of important ways. And we need to be considering whether membership with that organization is a valuable thing or not. Okay, well, that's not why you took this course. That's just my opinion. So you can not count that advice or that information. That's it for the reading for these 2 weeks. I'll post this, and then we'll be spending most of our time in these 2 weeks on that ethics discussion board, which is the first required discussion. Okay, thanks.